Okay, well, hello, class. My name is Mitchell Smith, and I live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, so I am quite a ways away from the seminary. For this assignment this week, to record a 5 to 7 minute video for a topic that we've looked at so at some point this semester, I chose to look at adolescence once again because it was very fascinating stuff. So, in this presentation, we will look at adolescence. In adolescence, this stage is generally understood to happen to those between the ages of 12 and 18. And I chose this stage because I believe so much is happening in their lives and it is important to discuss. I can reflect my time in adolescence and all the physical and emotional and spiritual changes that happen. I believe this stage is a hardship to all who experience it as their bodies and minds are rapidly changing. So, why I chose this topic? Well, there's four reasons. Rapid change happens. The first is physical change. Perhaps the most notable learning objective in this stage of development is more physical than any. They're learning about how relationships work, specifically romantic relationships. Physical and hormonal changes are also happening during this stage of development. We understand that those who go through this stage of development do so at different times. Males and females experience drastic change at differing ages, adding pressure to those who may be later than others. In middle and high school, you will find those who have deeper voices than others, demonstrating that those in adolescence experience change differently. After one has completely finished puberty, their body may change slightly in the future, but not so much. We see that those who are going through adolescence and complete it truly look like adults, though their maturity continues to develop. Growing physically, facial hair, and deeper voices are all things to be expected in this stage of development. Well, at least if you're a male. I recall clearly waking up one morning and greatly startling my mom as I walked into the kitchen. She asked me a question, and when I responded, she immediately was taken back by the change that happened in my voice. Maturing is also something that happens rapidly during adolescence. It's also a learning objective for those at this stage of development. We tend to see them put off more childish things and start to develop into more mature tasks and hobbies. One isn't as focused on playing with action figures and dolls as much as they are now focused on building intentional relationships with others and pursuing driver's license and jobs. Emotional change also happens during adolescence, and this is a key change in their stage of development. While there is continuity between emotions and behaviors from previous stages, we can see that these emotions are often heightened and intensified in adolescence. For example, one who struggles with anxiety in earlier years may continue to struggle in adolescence, in many cases in a bigger way. Those in this stage of development are trying to figure out a balance between the physical change along with emotional and behavioral intensifications, proving to be a very difficult stage of development. And the last point here is that they go through changes in their thought processes. Adolescence is the beginning of one's ability to think cognitively and consider hypotheticals and what if scenarios. Things aren't bliss or even black and white as they once were, and they are now able to ponder the deeper things in life from a more in depth point of view. So, why do we need to understand adolescence? Well, firstly, adolescence is a very vulnerable time. Their understanding is especially vulnerable to differing voices and worldviews during the stage of development. During adolescence, one may seek to find others that are like minded and affirming of their actions and choose to build close and intentional relationships with them. It is in this stage of development that they begin to ask questions, but not only surface level questions, even questions many that the answers are already given to them. If one is in pursuit of the deeper things in life and are surrounded by, let's say, LGBTQ plus advocates, their answers and moral compass may align closer to theirs than any other worldview. If one grows up in a Christian household and has been catechized in the faith, they may approach the world with Christian presuppositions and not falter under the pressures of worldly outlooks. It must be stressed that they are vulnerable and must come to their own conclusions, though. but outside factors do play a role. Who they build friendships with and who their friend groups are, these things all play a big part in this stage of development. The last point of why we need to understand adolescence is so that we can properly care and guide them during these times. We must be gracious to those undergoing rapid change in adolescence with an understanding that they are not fully developed mentally or emotionally. A comparison of one's brain before and during adolescence may shed light as to why they don't always make the best decisions. It is an important thing to consider that both the body and mind are rapidly changing during this time. Those in infancy are not struggling with romantic relationships because they're not capable. There is an enlarging and heightening of emotions and drives that were not once there. We understand that this is similar for both men and women, though there are distinctions to be made, both in the timeline and in the emotions. So, what is an effective tool for those in adolescence? Well, I would argue mentorship, but there's really two. Methods that are helpful in this stage of development are discussion based learning and mentorship roles in their lives. As previously discussed, those in adolescence are learning how to think critically and begin challenging ideas and worldviews. This is why open discussions and allowing one to speak freely may serve as a benefit, allowing a big exchange of ideas and causing them to grow. Because they are influenced by others, a mentor may be of great benefit. A mentor is one who is intentionally seeks to build relationships with them and guide them through this very difficult stage of life. So I have some questions for the audience to ponder. Has the church failed in mentoring the next generation? Have men failed to mentor younger men? Have women failed to mentor younger women? Are we seeing the result of a failure to mentor the next generation? And can this attribute to the rise of a godless nation? Well, with this, I'll leave you a few verses just to think about. In Deuteronomy 6, verses 6 through 7, it says, "You shall teach them diligently to your children." Psalm 78:4, "We will not hide them from their children, but tell to the coming generations." I'm sure we all know Proverbs 27:17. It says, "Iron sharpens iron, and one man sharpens another." Ecclesiastes 4:9 through 10, "Two are better than one, for if they fall, one will lift up his fellow." In 1 Corinthians 11, verse 1, Paul says that we are to be imitators of him as he is of Christ. In the book of Philippians, where Paul is referring to mentoring Timothy, he says, "I have no one like him, as a son with the Father. He has served me in the gospel." 2 Timothy 2:2 says, "What you have heard from me, entrust to faithful men, who will be able to teach others also." Titus 2:1 through 8. "Older men are to be sober minded, but the older women are to teach what is good, and so train the young." And lastly, Hebrews 13:7. "Remember your leaders, consider the outcome of their ways of life, and imitate their faith."